Awesome. Okay. So I'm not escaping the headset either, because I do actually want to ask some questions as we go along. So if you've got to wear them, I've got to wear them. That's the way it goes. It looks like it's just the three of us at the moment, so we'll get started. Hopefully we'll have some more people come and join us along the way. So just to kick us off and do the introductions first. My name is Matthew Rigby-White. I'm the Managing Director of Qoob. There's a little bit about us on the screen there. But we are a digital marketing agency, and we specialise in working with D2C and e-commerce brands. We're proud headline sponsors of Your Business Expo, and this will be the third year that we've been headline sponsors. We're based in Kettering, Northamptonshire, so we're pretty local. So I'm gonna get started, and hopefully some more people will join us. But what the heck am I on about? Marketing attribution. So there's only three of us in the room, so it's a bit of a lottery as to who it's going to be. But anyone want to volunteer? What the heck am I talking about when I say marketing attribution? No, you don't know? Yeah, you can't get out of it.
I can't get out of it. I would say it's looking at the return on investment that you're likely to get on your marketing activity.
Got at least one more coming to join. Thank you. Good to have a few of us here. Right, so what the heck is marketing attribution? Yes, you are right. And it's a little bit more than that as well. What is marketing attribution? Well, when we talk about marketing attribution, we're generally talking about pounds in equals pounds out, right? We're talking about, anyone heard the phrase ROAS, or ROI is the one that most of us will have come across, return on investment or return on advertising spend. There's lots of these acronyms in the marketing world. I'm trying to make sure I stay at the right. Now I can hear myself. At a more basic level, it's the question of where's it come from, right? What's working? What's not working? There is a little AI generated image on the left hand side there, but I think it accurately describes the marketing view on attribution, which is it's like the holy grail. It's what we all aim for. We want to prove to our customers, prove to our clients, prove to our bosses as marketing people that we're putting money in and we're getting money out. But marketers have become a little bit obsessed with it, particularly marketers, and we've done such a great job at being obsessed with it that we've also made business owners obsessed with it. So we all want to know that we're putting money in and how much we're getting out. So we're putting money into that channel, how much is that bringing in return? So it's possible, right? Of course it is. Except it isn't. And I'm going to make the argument, very much university debate style today, as to why I feel perfect attribution is actually a myth. Oh, that we filled out, lovely. Oh, that's great. Right, we've got some more people in the audience now, so we can do some more marketing, we can do some more audience participation then, as there's more of you. I asked the question earlier, and I'll just come back to it, which is who wants to offer a definition of marketing attribution? There's a microphone here. Someone put your hand up. What do you think marketing attribution is? When we talk about it, what are we talking about? Anyone who has it? Go on, George will do it. So I just want to make sure we start with that, because not everybody understands what we're talking about.
It's a very bizarre way of doing it, Matt.
Yeah.
It's the 21st century. Yeah, no, for me, marketing attribution is all about literally we spend a huge amount of money on marketing channels left, right and centre, and I think really you've got to know where your money's being spent and how effective that money is. And I think in a way, if you can just try and go along various ways of trying to track, because the technology out there has moved on so much the last 10 years, and so these technologies out there to go and track exactly basically whether it's the SEO, pay-per-click or social media campaigns, because look, in the day things are getting so expensive left, right and centre, and you've got to make sure that you're spending the money in the right areas and knowing exactly where every penny and how it's all coming together.
Absolutely, thanks George, that's excellently put. And so just recap for those that have just joined us. So we talk about marketing attribution, and what we generally talk about in the world of business is things like pounds in equals pounds out, right? So we're talking about ROAS, or return on investment, so ROAS being return on advertising spend if you do any advertising. Or more plainly, where's it come from? Where's our business coming from? What's working? What's not working? Where should we put money? Where should we take money away? And that's generally in the marketing world, like the holy grail is tracking and analytics and how we can make sense of that. And marketers are obsessed with it, and we've done a great job at making business owners obsessed with it as well. And in a way, I think we've made a bit of a rod for our own back as marketers, all with the best of intentions, right? Because it should be possible. It should be possible. In the world we live in today, with the technology, as George mentioned, we should be able to say where things are coming from. And I'm going to argue today that there's 3 reasons why that is a myth, and it is not possible. And I'm going to go into that, into each of those 3 reasons. But they boil down to humans, technology, and bias. So there's 3 reasons why I would say perfect attribution. I'm not saying attribution in general, but perfect attribution is a myth. And I'll get more into that as well later on. So the first one, humans. We're not robots, and I think everybody knows that, and particularly it's good to remind ourselves in the world of AI and tech and what's going on in the world. But we are human beings, we're complicated things, and I would say a traditional buying journey is a little bit like that squiggly line at the top. We don't just jump to buying something, right? We're actually very spend averse, right? We don't want to part ways with our hard-earned money when we're making decisions. So we are humans. So think about this yourself. Just do a lovely thought experiment and rub your chin a little bit. Just think of a purchase you make, because as well as being business people, we might be business owners or work in businesses, we're also all consumers, right? So we've all bought stuff, probably in the last couple of days, probably in the last week, in the last year. Big spend, small spend, little decisions, big decisions, right? We all do it. Okay, so I want you to think of just one thing that you bought recently. And now think back on that experience. Did you see an ad and then immediately spend money? It's a rhetorical question, because I don't think anybody sensibly does that, right? Nobody sees an ad on their Facebook feed, I've never heard of that company before, I've never seen that product, but I'm buying it now and here's my credit card details. Just doesn't happen. That's not how we spend money. But did you research the company, research the product, read reviews, look at alternatives, speak to your friends? Probably. You might have done one or a number of those things. And then by the time you actually made a purchase, did you feel like you've made an informed decision? And again, it's rhetorical, because nobody buys something thinking, oh, I'm not sure about this, right? We go into purchases knowing, having made our minds up. We might have made the wrong decision. I'm not saying we haven't made the right decision, but we make a decision and we feel like we've been informed in making that decision. And only then do we ever hand over our credit card or cash. Yes, I'm not saying impulse purchases don't happen, they absolutely do. What you generally find is they're things that you actually probably thought about before. So although in the moment you've made that decision to buy, it's probably something you've already thought about buying in the past, and you've just never quite got to the point where you feel like, I'm going to do that, I'm going to splash out, today's the day, right? So, question, George, pick a randomer, give him the microphone. I'll tell you what, ask Sean, he's our new guy, just joined the business yesterday. Sean can answer the question.
Thanks for that.
Right, we've all heard about touch points. Hopefully, Sean, you've heard about touch points. Right, so just a number. What do you think? How many touch points do you think it takes to get to a point with a customer where they've never heard about you to actually making a purchase?
Some in the region of 5 to 10.
5 to 10? Yeah. Anybody agree with that? Put your hand up if you agree with that. 5 to 10? Right, okay. In traditional marketing logic, it's about 7 or 8. Depends who you ask, what article you read. 7 or 8. However, if they get 8, the world we live in right now, the latest research is that the average consumer has 50 to 60 micro touch points with a brand before they ever make a purchase. Tenfold. That's a huge, and think about the deluge of advertising and marketing that we're all subjected to on a daily basis. That's a hell of a lot of touch points. The world has massively changed in terms of how people make decisions and how prepared they are to spend. And also when wallets are tighter as well, people take that little bit longer to make a purchasing decision. But fundamentally, there's absolutely no point marketing to people who don't have a need, because it doesn't matter how many touch points they've had. If they don't need your product, if they don't want your product, you ain't going to sell it to them, right? That's fundamental marketing. People have to have a need or a perceived need or perceived benefit to part way with money. So how's that for poor attention span, which is where the dog reference comes in. Because often, in marketing, we're all jumping around from this thing to that thing to this thing, and we're not really paying attention to what our customers need. And consumers as well, we're also doing that. You'll go on Facebook, then on Instagram, then on Twitter, and then on reading the news and reading an article. We jump around lots of different channels. And then there's a cliche coming up, and it is people buy from people, right? It's an overused adage. It's one that comes up probably once a week in business talk, right? It's one thing we say, but what do we really mean? Well, in this circumstance, when we're talking about making a purchasing decision, over half of transactions are influenced by word of mouth and referrals. That's quite substantial. So what hope did we have as digital marketers anyway, tracking it, unless we're listening to every single conversation, and and again, don't rule anything out with technology the way it is these days, but the reality is, ethically, morally, we can't do that. We can't listen into every conversation that everybody has with their friends, their loved ones, business associates, and that is the world we live in. So if you're not in charge of 50%, then you can't track at least 50% of the decision making, then how can you attribute anything to any particular channel? Reason 2, because that was just reason 1, which is the humans. Reason 2 is technology, and this is I guess it depends what excites you, but there's only one slide on reason 2, and it is basically that the world around us has all changed, and particularly in the context of privacy, right? Consumers want more privacy, and that's been going on for, it's been going on for way more than a decade. The customers care about this. We had things like the Cambridge Analytica scandal. All of these things played into it. My data, that sort of perception that data belongs to you, the consumer, has all played into this. And it's just taken a while for certain things to catch up. Regulation came out first, GDPR, I remember the GDPR bubble, and everybody was manic crazy about cookie bots and everything else, and having pop-ups on their website, and then it all kind of fizzled away, and it's all kind of made a bit of a resurgence again. And the reason for that is because technology has finally caught up. We had recently GA4, which is Google Analytics 4, for those who are familiar with Google Analytics, where we can track behavior on websites. A new version of that was launched in 2023, and that took quite a privacy-focused approach to analytics anyway, an events-driven approach. Google rolled out in 2024 something called Consent Mode version 2, which is why we've seen, unless you're in this world, you'll have noticed as a consumer more pop-ups now over the last year asking for consent, because it's a requirement now for things like Google advertising and using Google products that you are collecting explicit consent. And then Chrome recently this year has just ended third-party cookies, which again is changing the landscape of how we physically track. So there's lots of technological things going on that are actually making it harder and harder and harder just to physically do the act of tracking. There's some advances, and there's some areas that digital marketers are trying to get around some of those things, but in the end it is harder to do tracking than it's ever been before. And lastly, and probably most importantly, bias. There's obviously innate human bias, and we talked about some of the human behaviors, but there's also technological bias, and there's also the platforms themselves. So we all know sensibly that data can be manipulated. It can be tweaked and changed, and a new glossy front end put on it to tell a picture, to tell a story, but you could take that exact same data set and you could tell a different story depending on what your spin on that data is, and that's typically the case. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's a little picture on there, and this is for the digital marketers in the room, inside joke. Facebook like to claim credit for a lot of things, probably overclaim, they're a big one, for overclaiming their role in a purchasing decision. But most platforms, Google Analytics, they have inherent bias within them. And what we're also forgetting is a lot of these advertising channels are quite far down the buying journey. We're typically targeting people who are already in market, people who had already decided to make a purchase. We just want to be the person that they buy from, or the brand that they buy from. So it's very biased in that sense as well. Platforms always overclaim credit, and they normally do so on something called a last click model. So I'm going to explain what that is in a minute. There is this misconception that a Google search, or the last thing they did, it might be a discount code they entered on the website, drove that sale, right? None of us go to a website to buy with a discount code, right? We don't buy because of the discount code. We use the discount code to save a bit of money, and it might help us with making that decision about supplier A versus supplier B. But ultimately, it didn't drive our need, it didn't drive our demand in the first place. So there's a few scenarios here that I'm just going to pop up on the screen. I'll read them to you. So scenario 1, Bob, random names, these aren't actual people. Bob searches for a product. He clicks on your ad. He goes off to other sites and does a comparison, and then he makes a decision. I'm going to buy from you. But then he searches for your brand name. So the thing that comes up in the search result is your website, because he's looked for you, your brand, because he's already become familiar with you through other channels. He then goes on your website, he clicks on a free organic listing, goes on your website and makes a purchase. So where's the attribution for that? So the way it works is that organic gets the credit, because that's the last thing they did before they made a purchase. Yes, there are scenarios where we can track things like the first time the user came to the website, but again, was that really the thing that started it all off, right? Was that the start of the chain? So we just have to take a pragmatic view of these things, right? So scenario 2, Jill sees an ad on Instagram. 3 days later, she's discussing it with friends. She opens the browser, she Googles your brand again. This time she has a look at your reviews. She clicks on an organic shopping listing, which is slightly different in a Google search result, and then she makes a purchase. Well, funnily enough, Meta goes, well, we played a part in that. So we're going to give some of the credit to Instagram, and then Google's like, well, actually, no, I'm having all of the credit, because it all came from a Google shopping ad, a Google shopping listing. So you can see the picture's getting really murky already, and these are very simple scenarios. So George clicks on your email on their phone. They've had an email from you promoting your latest offer. He reads about your product. But then, because we're human beings, he goes, well, actually, I don't feel good about doing a purchase on my phone. I'm going to go and sit on my laptop because I just feel safer that way. So he's switching device. He's gone from his phone to his laptop, and then he goes direct to your website and he makes a purchase. So email did the job. That was the thing that triggered him to go, oh yeah, I need that. Click on the link, have a look at the product. Yeah, I'm going to go on my desktop and I'm going to complete the purchase on there. So organic and direct get it. So what we generally see in the industry is there's a lot of emphasis on things like organic. And people think, oh, well, that's because I've got to rank higher. Well, actually, no, you really need to dig into where your organic traffic's coming from, because it might be, and it is in most cases, that the vast majority of that is brand-related terms. And that isn't just because everybody knows who you are. Let's face it, right? We have to be realistic. How have they heard about you in the first place? What else have you done way before that? It might have been years before that to help build that brand awareness. So hopefully you're all following where I'm going with this, right? Even if I explain that to a business owner, I guarantee they'll go, yeah, but we can still track it, right? We can still track it. I guess my answer is always kind of. Yes, we can kind of track it. I'm not going to say that there's no merit in that and there's no benefit in that. And in today's world, we can do something called multi-touch attribution, right? There are, Google Analytics tries really hard actually to attribute revenue to different sources. So it doesn't say, oh, that all came from paid search. It does try to discern, and the eagle-eyed among you will notice that does not add up to 100% on the left-hand side. And that was an accident, by the way, but actually it's very representative of what actually happens, because it always doesn't. It hardly ever does match up exactly, because, as I said, those platforms have inherent bias. They give themselves more credit than perhaps is due. So there's a paragraph down the right-hand side, but basically what it's saying is, yes, we can do it, but I'd also argue that multi-touch attribution kind of dilutes the point in the first place. Because if what you're getting out of multi-touch attribution is, well, a bit of everything worked, well, what decision is that helping you make, right? So we have to question, as marketers, whether actually that's more valuable or actually less valuable. And the jury's out. The jury's out. So what's the harm? Okay, great, we can do all this tracking, but what's the actual harm of doing it? And why am I moaning about it, right? Because I'm going to carry on tracking, I'm going to carry on using attribution. So what's the harm? And this is why I'm talking about it. Bad data and ignorance about that bad data leads to poor marketing decisions. I see it time and time again where people spend too much because they go, well, that's working, so we're going to spend 10 times more in that platform, and actually we'll take money from everywhere else and we'll put it in that platform because that's the thing that's working. They start chasing quick wins. They start focusing on the channels that are going to tell them the next day, a week later, a month later, that generated revenue. And they miss out on the long-term picture stuff. They believe their own bad data. This is arguably the most dangerous. They believe wholeheartedly that what they're seeing is representative of their customer journey, and it often isn't. They avoid new ideas and traditional marketing. I mean, I have lots of conversations with people. We don't do direct mail anymore. We don't do print advertising. We don't do this. We're partners with Your Business Expo and Pulse Group Media, who run Business MK, Business Times magazines, and Pulse magazines. We see the value in print, and we understand it. But it is part of the picture. You can't just say, oh, we're not going to do that because digital's where we know we can get our return on investment, because you're missing out on a huge opportunity. I mean, you're all here for starters. This is more traditional marketing, right? Why are we doing this? Are we all going to walk away knowing that we got a lead? Maybe, if we're lucky. But it's not just about that, and we keep turning up. And why do we keep turning up? Because we understand there's an inherent value in brand awareness and being in the conversation. And lastly, in the end, what this results in is falling behind competitors. You make enough bad decisions, you're going to fall behind competitors who are making better decisions than you. So, that all sounds a bit negative. It's a bit doom and gloom. So what should we do? And I'm going to give you some advice on that. But firstly, just to caveat everything I've just said with I am not saying you shouldn't track. Absolutely, do not walk away thinking that, well, we might as well switch Google Analytics off because it's pointless, right? That's not what I'm saying, but you absolutely should track, but just that adage of take it with a pinch of salt. That's the thing I want you to walk away from. You've got to take your tracking data and your attribution with a pinch of salt. Perfect attribution is a myth, but good marketers know when to trust data and how to understand it, including its limits and and using it to inform decisions rather than make decisions for you. Really, really important. I'd say not just good marketers, but great marketers know when to trust it and how to understand it. And by the way, when I say marketers, I don't mean people who are just in the marketing industry. You, as business people, are all marketers too. So you need to learn how to understand it, how to interpret this data. Some tips. Remember to ask, what are my metrics not telling me? It's very easy to look at, oh, what's it telling me? How can I make a decision based off this report or this data? You just got to remember what's not in that picture, what's missing. Engage in active dialogue with your customers. Sometimes the best thing to do is ask, where did you hear about us? There's a couple of screenshots there. Where did you hear about us? Ask that question, because often customers will tell you, and it might not be the thing you thought it was. It might have been that video that you put on LinkedIn every day, or it might be that postcard you sent through the post. It might be their neighbours just had their garden done, and maybe there's something there. Live the life of your customer. We all feel guilty of this. We fall on the side of with the business versus the customer. Actually, no. As I said earlier, you're all consumers. You can all logically sit there and just thought process through what that buying journey might look like for the average customer of yours. And it's different for every customer. Where are they living? What platforms are they on? What interests them? Understanding your audience. And also asking for feedback and reviews. This is really, really important because it's going to help inform your marketing, but it's also going to help with conversion. It's also going to, if you can surface really good, strong quality reviews about your brand, that helps with some of that research phase that customers go through as part of the buying process. Big picture goals. I always like talking about things like customer lifetime value. In the world of digital marketing, if you're using Google Ads and things like that, the cost of what we call customer acquisition. So the first time to get a brand new customer that's never bought from you before is quite high. Often, in many businesses, you won't see a return on investment in the quotation marks. You won't see that in the first transaction. You might not see it in the second. It might mean that you have to retain that customer for years and years and years to see the overarching return on investment. A customer that spends £50 might cost you £50 to get, but they may spend £10,000 with you over the next 5 years. So we need to take that into consideration when we're going out to market, with advertising especially. Remember to choose metrics that not just are granular in detail, but also capture big things like how customers are feeling about your brand. And this is where feedback and reviews can kind of come into it. Bigger outputs, and just be careful when you're looking at data that you're not zooming in too far, because there is a tendency to go, well, let's look at what performance was like last week or last month. And actually, often if you dive into too little, you get a completely different picture than what you would have done is looking at data as a whole. So be really careful when you're zooming in. It can be useful, but just make sure that you're not doing that at too granular a level. And traditional marketing and investing in things like PR activities that help build brand awareness are really, really important as well. Even if you can't measure those things, we have to accept that there are things that we need to be doing that we can't always track and measure. And then get back to basics. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is aimed at you. If Ansoff, Pestle, SWOT, 4 to 7 Ps, depending on who you are, if they mean nothing to you, then you need to absolutely go and work out what they are and understand them, and do a Google search. You'll understand it very, very quickly. There's some really fundamental things you can do there just to get your head in the mind space of a marketer and not just a digital marketer. Know your customer. This is always critical. You need to spend time learning who they are, what they need, and where they spend their time. A clear value proposition. Why are you different? Why does your service product matter? What problem do you solve? And try and make sure it's unique. And I mean really unique. Not we're just the best at it. No, okay, that's not good enough. You've got to dig deeper than that. Building a consistent brand message is really, really important. Make sure that your visuals, because if you are doing a mix of advertising, you need to make sure that when people see you, they recognize you, because it is in that recognition that you're building brand awareness. Not the act of seeing the ad, right? Seeing the ad the one time doesn't build brand awareness. Seeing the ad over and over and over and over again, that's the thing that helps you as your brand occupy space in their mind. Choosing the right channels, because we're all generally all small business owners. We cannot be doing everything. We are fighting a losing battle if we're trying to do everything. Think about your customer, think about where they live, where they are, and what messages are going to resonate with them, and focus on those channels. Trust your gut as well sometimes. If you know your customers well enough, you'll probably make the right decision. And gather feedback and adapt. Be prepared to feedback, learning. And lastly, I'll try and end with this, because I talk about a lot of data stuff and techie stuff, and marketing's supposed to be fun. That's why I do it. I enjoy it. It's an opportunity to get creative, think about challenges in a different way and how you can overcome them, and how you can grow your business. And marketing is fundamentally important for every single business. It's universal. It's universal across every sector, every business. And I meet people that say, oh, well, we don't need to do marketing. Yes, you absolutely 100% do. And you probably are. You just don't call it marketing. Right. So that's the lecture over. I did say it was going to be university style to those that were at the start, but hopefully I've made some reasonable arguments. And if you can take away from this that marketing is fun, and you can look at it with a different lens, and please don't get drawn too much into the techie detail. Take a step back and look at what's actually happening in your market. The technical landscape is changing faster than it ever has. So now's a really good time to hit the reset button on how you do your marketing and how you approach it. So for those that weren't here at the start, I'm Matthew Rigby-White. I'm the Managing Director of Qoob. We have a stand over by the front door. If you want to come and chat to me after the seminar, please do. Otherwise, thank you for joining. It's been great. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really interesting. Can I just ask a question? Something we're battling with as a boring, grey-haired old law firm is the fact of speaking to younger people. How quickly can we engage them when they're used to having a 30-second sort of concentration spell or swiping to the next TikTok video? How do we draw that generation in?
Hello. Sorry. Right. I don't think you were sat down when we went over a slide earlier, and I think it would be quite useful context for the question you've just asked. Sorry, I didn't realise just how many slides there are. Bear with me a second. Were you here when we talked about touch points? Yeah. Oh, you did hear that? Okay, yeah. So that's the issue, right? That's really what we're talking about. We're talking about the number of forms of media now that young people have. You have to remember, right, they're not on these platforms to be sold to, okay? So they're there to be entertained, they're there to spend their time. It's where they like to hang out, right? I mean, I'm relatively young, but I used to hang out in the park with my mates, right? They don't do that anymore. That's not what kids want to do. So just imagine a scenario where you're in a park with your mates, maybe with a bottle of cider between you, and then somebody walked over and started trying to sell stuff to you. That's the digital playground that we're in, okay? So we have to be cleverer about it. We have to speak their language. We have to really tailor our content to them. and their personal interests and demographics. And that's why you see, and you can go too far with that because you can lose your own identity in the process. So you have to be very, very careful. We see brands putting TikTok videos out with varying degrees of success, and just because something doesn't end with a call to action, end with and buy from us, and we sell this product and it's great, that doesn't mean it's not good marketing, right? Because you're occupying a space in their mind, they've become familiar with your brand, that's how you do it, right? So you have to remember that's where we are in the world. Hopefully that's answered the question to a lesser extent.
Thank you very much indeed. Excellent. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing how a legal firm captures that audience. That could be quite interesting. Any other questions? Anybody else want to ask?
Yes, Matthew. Just on those touch points, you said micro touch points. So, what does that actually mean?
So, because that was a perfect example. A flick through a video. That's what I'm talking about. Micro touch points. It could be bigger than that, but often in today's world they're a lot smaller than that. An ad that you skip, right? That first 2 seconds of an ad, that's a micro touch point. So, we're just in that fast-paced world now where people don't spend the time to read the leaflet, watch the whole video. So you've got to focus on what you can get across.
Does that apply to all kind of age profiles? Are there any particular demographics?
I think it is probably more steered towards younger generations. If these are statistics, and as I said earlier, you can tell whatever story you like with statistics and data. But I would imagine this is biased towards young people, yeah. But I'd say older generations are, give them the credit, they're catching up as well.
Well, I'm in that generation, so thank you.
So I'm 32 this month, so that gives you a flavour of where I am. I feel old and young both at the same time. Anybody else? Anything else? If not, come and chat to me afterwards. That's absolutely fine.
So I've noticed every Google search I do now, I get a little AI box at the top now, and all those paid ads, the sponsored ads, now appear underneath. That must be a fundamental change in the...
those that have come to a previous seminar, and there are a few in the room, but actually relatively few, I talk about AI a lot. And I was really, really conscious not to today. This is a subject that I'm passionate about. If you want to have a chat about AI, come and speak to me afterwards, because there's lots going on in that space. And you are right that Google seem to be putting more emphasis on AI-generate results. There's shifts we're seeing as well, just in terms of consumer behaviour on the search results page. We talk about this concept called CTR, click-through rate. What we're seeing is this is falling at a rapid pace, because if anyone do SEO or have an SEO agency, somebody doing SEO, right? Okay, so in SEO, content is king. That's what everybody's always said for years, right? So lots and lots of brands have put loads of money and investment into generating how-to articles, top 10 ways of doing this, all that sort of good content. Guess where that's going now? It's all served on the search engine results page. So the click-through rate, your content showing in the search results, and then people clicking on it and actually reading your blog or your article, your piece of content, is falling through the floor, right? So what we're seeing is a shift more towards high intent phrases. So it's further down the funnel where people are now using Google for searching for, and that's where more competition is on ads and things like that as well. So yes, you're right, that is showing up. It's changing the way people use search in general. There's a phrase called search fragmentation, which is worth having a Google of, because that will give you a bit of an idea of what's going on in the landscape. It's exponential, the increase in AI generated, and the younger generation are shifting in droves over to using ChatGPT for what was traditionally done on Google search. The last thing I just add on that is, if you want to show in those search results, you generally have to do the same things you're doing for SEO. There's a bit of nuances there, but the same principles apply. If you want to show in those AI search results, then you need to be producing good quality content, authoritative content, and you need to be working on pretty much all the same things that you were doing for SEO. You just have to understand that the objective has changed. All right? Sorry, I'm really passionate about it. I could talk about it for hours. Okay, thanks. We got another seminar, so yeah, we're going to have to wrap up. Thanks, everyone. If you want to chat to me, I'll be at the stand or here for the next few minutes. Thank you.